In the opening sequence of the film, we are introduced to Susie Banyan, a ballet student who has moved to the town of Friedberg, Germany, in order to study at a prestigious dance school known as the Tanz Academy. She has just arrived at her destination, and as she is exiting the airport, the main theme of the movie starts playing. A sign of the supernatural terror is forthcoming. She steps out, and the rain is aggressive, almost attacking, warning her of the dangers she'll soon have to face. After some trouble, she eventually manages to grab a cab, and in it, we get an early taste of the incredible lighting that would make this film so iconic. When she gets to the school, someone's at the entrance. A woman standing outside, shouting something before she takes off running. When Susie tries to enter, she's unable to, and is shooed away by an unknown voice.
Hello? Susie Banyan. I just got in from New York. I don't know you. Go away.
As she is taking her taxi back, we see the same woman as before, now running through the trees, before stopping at her friend's apartment. The directing and choice of location here is fantastic. We learn this woman is Pat Hingle, a student of the Tanz Academy who has fled the school due to matters that are...
It's useless to try and explain it to you. It all seems so absurd, so fantastic. Would you mind if I use the bathroom?
However, when she enters the bathroom, it's clear that she isn't safe here either. Pat is ambushed by a mysterious assailant who starts repeatedly stabbing her in the chest, one even managing to cut into her heart. In complete terror, her friend tries to alert the other residents, but is unsuccessful. After the prolonged stabbing, Pat is hanged and dropped from the skylight, where her corpse is on full display, blood dripping from it. The camera then slowly pans to her friend, who has been impaled by the falling glass shards. This is our introduction into Directed by Dario Argento, a famed filmmaker hailing from Rome, he has made many notable Italian horror films. Known as giallos, these films were basically precursors to 80s slashers, featuring many of the tropes that will make them so beloved and so infamous. Though, unlike a lot of other giallos that were usually pretty grounded, somewhat, Suspiria features a much more noticeable fantastical element to it, with a story inspired by Suspiria de Profundis, a collection of essays by Thomas D. Quincy. Wikipedia describes it as, and I quote, an examination of the process of memory as influenced by hallucinogenic drug use. Yeah, I can definitely see how this inspired the film. Assisting Argento was his then partner Daria Nicolodi, who co-wrote the screenplay, mainly taking ideas from fairy tales, to contrast with Dario's more occultist themes. Also helping him was his brother Claudio Argento, who produced the film. I just thought I should mention that. After the chaos of last night, we are now peacefully reintroduced to the academy, where we meet the characters. As Susie enters the place, we are introduced to Miss Tanner, the head instructor, who is fucking terrifying.
I had no idea you were so strong-willed.
Actress Alida Valli gives her a very unique and unnerving performance. Then, we meet the deputy headmistress, Madame Blanc, who is talking to detectives about the recent murders of Pat and Pat's friend. She is played by somewhat famous silent and sound film star, Joan Bennett, in her final film role. Despite her strong sense of authority, she seems to be pretty normal, unlike all her staff members who are,
This is Pavlos, our general handyman. He's really ugly, isn't he? Don't be afraid to say so.
After being introduced to those two, we get to meet some of the students of the academy. Notable ones include Mark, who at first seems like a love interest for Susie, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Then there's Olga, who is Olga. She's worth mentioning as Susie is moving in with her, not wanting to live in the school despite Madame Blanc's insistence. Finally, there's Sarah. She's probably the most major character in the school, as she acts as the main companion to Susie throughout the film. Of course, I shouldn't forget about Susie. Portrayed by the incredibly beautiful Jessica Harper, she's the main character of the film, but overall, she's your basic giallo protagonist. Naive at first, but slowly starts to become more investigative, gradually unraveling the strange oddities of the academy, always signaled by the signature theme of the movie. As Susie walks to her first class, she gets blinded by a bright, white light, shouting, This light seems to have about the same effect as 2 whole bottles of wine, including the passing out. Though, I would need all the wine moms out there to verify whether or not nosebleeds are common. Due to this incident, she gets kicked out of Olga's and is now living in the school, much to her dismay. Well, hey, at least she gets to have red wine for her meals. Pretty weird thing to prescribe to someone to heal this.
It works miracles. Clears up anemia and strengthens red corpuscles. It builds the blood.
Sure. Well, hopefully the wine is able to make her forget about the maggots in her comb, hair, and ceiling. Yeah, that's fucking gross. Well, first day living in the school and there's already a maggot infestation. Because of this mishap, all the students and faculty now have to sleep in the gym. Sure, the beds are comfy, but could the atmosphere be any less terrifying? Which, speaking of, I absolutely love the visuals of this scene. The incredibly deep red lighting makes for a menacing tone, and the way the students are all surrounded by teachers and staff who are all in shadow, it makes the faculty feel more mysterious and more threatening. Not to mention, all of these visual components are punctuated by the masterful sound work. The film's score was composed by the band Goblin, a very fitting name as they're mainly famous for their work on horror films. One of the members, Claudio Simonetti, considers Suspiria's soundtrack to be the band's best effort, and who could blame him? The soundtrack is killer. It's this fantastic mixture of beauty and fear, the heavy bass, the raspy guitars and bouzouki, the incredible synth work, the beating drums, and the fear-inducing vocal work. All these instruments add up to give the film that final touch, the cherry on top that brings out the mysticism and horror aspects to their full effect. Impressive, as the soundtrack was made before even a single scene was shot. As the music subsides, we find out that one of the sleeping shadows, the one laying in bed behind our titular duo, is none other than the directress, recognized by Sarah due to her whack-ass snoring.
I heard this weird kind of snoring. Hear that whistle? So I know she's the directress. She's there, right behind that sheet.
After that horrifying night is over, Sarah asks Miss Tanner whether the directress was sleeping with them last night. Tanner denies it, saying she's away. But before we can think more about this strange oddity, Miss Tanner aggressively confronts Daniel, the pianist, about his dog attacking Madame Blanc's nephew, Albert. Daniel denies it, rigorously claiming his dogs are good doggies. And judging by the scene before, it appears that Albert was the one approaching the hound, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But despite the somewhat suspicious circumstances, Miss Tanner berates and fires Daniel on the spot anyways.
Get out, you and your dog! Get moving! You bitch! Out! Get out of here! Good riddance!
Alita really channeled her inner Gene Wilder for that. I haven't mentioned this before, but Sarah has an extreme curiosity for the strange things about this school. She's suspicious of the academy and its faculty, even counting their steps, believing they leave the place every night. But Susie realizes and points out that the footsteps don't actually lead to the entrance. In fact, they go further into the school. The staff isn't going away like Sarah assumed, they're going somewhere deeper. But before this strange revelation could settle, German shenanigans! Look, I don't know what this is called. It looks ridiculous, but Daniel clearly loves it. He loves it so much he needs someone to escort him out in order for him to stop watching it. As Daniel walks his dog, they both enter an incredibly large and ominous plaza area, flanked by 2 gigantic buildings. The camera angle here really emphasizing their imposing nature. The dog starts barking, seemingly at nothing, as if there's some kind of invisible threat all around us. As the barking continues, our attention is drawn to the statue on top of one of the buildings, where just like the light that blinded Susie, it chants. We take the POV of some mysterious creature flying over the pianist. Then we see what looks to be a coven of witches casting large shadows on one of the buildings. Suddenly, Daniel's dog attacks him, brutally mauling him to death before he is chased away by 2 officers. Daniel's death here is a great showcase of the immaculate gore effects that Suspiria possesses. As you can tell or not tell, depending on how much I am going to show, the blood used in this film is incredibly vibrant. In fact, it almost looks less like blood and more like red paint. However, in my opinion, this simple creative decision actually adds to the gore rather than taking away from it. Now, real blood can vary a fair amount in color, so this level of vibrancy isn't out of the question, but blood's normally pretty dark, leading to a majority of filmmakers nowadays opting to use blood that is more on the darker side. And that's great if your film's trying to be gritty or realistic, but in a film like this that's all about style, it's way more advantageous to crank up that vibrancy to really help the blood stand out more, leading to kills that are much more memorable. When you exaggerate the blood's color and viscosity, you exaggerate the gore, you heighten the feelings that blood elicits in you, thus creating kills that are, in a way, more gory and more bloody than, say, kills in Saw or Hostel, whose more grounded, more darker, literally, approach to blood conjures up feelings of cruelty and discomfort rather than shock and awe. After hearing about Daniel's untimely death, Susie decides to tell Madame Blanc about the night she got shooed away from the academy, informing her about something she faintly remembers Pat saying. Sarah does not take his snitching very well. As turns out, not only was she Pat's friend, but she was also the one who told Susie to go away during that night.
When you suddenly showed up. Remember that voice when you rang the bell? That was me.
And it seems like Sarah might be right to be paranoid, as someone is almost certainly watching them. Not only that, but her notes are gone! A truly horrifying experience, especially if it happens before a test, or God forbid, a presentation. But actually, her notes didn't relate to any of that. They were actually about,
Susie, do you know anything about witches?
yeah, Sarah's fucked. As Susie passes out, the lights go out, and the room is now radiating this bright green hue, a color commonly associated with witches. Sarah better act fast, as it seems like someone's at the door. Frightened, she exits into the hallways, which are illuminated in this intense red tone, invoking a strong sense of danger, increasing the tension. It's clear that someone is out to get her. She manages to escape to the attic, which is drenched in this calm blue lighting that eases us, making us feel safe, luring us into a false sense of security. Sarah has been ambushed by the same person who killed Pat, and it seems like she's going to meet the same fate. Or maybe not. As in the cold blue room she escaped to, there's a window illuminated with a much more natural, almost golden light directing Sarah, who uses the cases around her to create a platform for her to reach the window, where, on the other side, there's seemingly a way out. Looks like she's gonna make out this alright. Never mind. Sarah is now tangled up in what Wikipedia calls razor wire, but they look like normal razorless wires to me. But that doesn't matter, cause still ensnares her well enough for the unknown pursuer to come and slit her throat. This whole entire sequence is one of my favorites from the film, as it really demonstrates the powerful lighting that Dario Argento uses to great effect. Instead of lighting up the scene with natural looking or diegetic lighting, Argento chooses to illuminate the sequence brightly with all three primary additive colors because he understands the emotional power that strong, colorful lighting can convey. This kind of lighting also makes these set pieces of horror and terror contrast really well with the calmer breathers in between, which are more naturally lit, helping to convey that idea of safety and serenity. That's the greatness that stylish lighting can bring to a film, not just to the scenes that use it, but to those surrounding them as well. Even if unrealistic, it's worth it, because it produces unique visuals that help drive feelings and moods that you're going to remember long after the credits roll.
Looking for Sarah? She's disappeared. She left this morning, as a matter of fact, without telling anyone.
But it's impossible.
Even though Sarah is gone and so are the notes, Susie is still very invested in the matters of the academy. So she calls up and meets with one of Sarah's associates, Frank. We get a uniquely outdoor scene that seemingly takes place far outside of the school, where Susie and Frank are discussing the matters of Sarah,
upset about some notions put into her head by a friend of hers.
The history of the Academy,
Founded in 1895 by a certain Helena Marcos.
and obviously, witchcraft.
Well, as a believer in the material world and a psychiatrist to boot, I'm convinced that the current spread of belief in magic and the occult is part of mental illness. Bad luck isn't brought by broken mirrors, but by broken minds.
Take note of what Frank says here, as while I'm not gonna be dissecting it here, the whole idea of whether or not witchcraft is real and whether or not it's tied to psychological stuff is a recurring theme in the Three Mothers trilogy that Suspiria is a part of. But it's a bit too complicated to go through right now, so I'll just skip over it. Besides, what's really important is learning about witch covens and how to take them down.
A coven deprived of its leader is like a headless cobra, harmless.
After speaking with Frank and Professor Milius, Susie starts to become even more suspicious of the school. In a possible allusion to Pat's friend, Susie attempts to get some help from Mark and the other students, but
Where is everybody?
They have all gone to the theater for the opening of the Bolshoi.
Then why didn't anyone tell me about it?
hey, I know, it sucks to not be invited to events. But at least she can talk the matter over with Frank. Oh no, power bat!
Hello?
Due to all this strange happenstance, Susie decides to dump her food into the toilet and spill her wine into the sink, where it leaves a sticky red residue that I assume isn't supposed to be there, but I'm not a fucking wine sommelier, so what do I know? Well, I do know it's probably not normal to have two glowing eyes staring at you from the window. What the fuck, a bat?
Holy Jesus, what are these goddamn animals?
This bat terrorizes Susie until she just straight up kills it. I mean, this still is an Italian film after all. After the terrifying encounter with the bat, Susie heads out of her room to follow the school staff, using her ability to count footsteps to navigate the hallway, narrowly escaping the cooks and making her way into the room where the steps end. And it's a dead end, with no one in sight. Confused, Susie looks around the place, looking for any way out aside from the door she just came into. Then, as she looks in the mirror, observing the three colorful irises opposite of her, she finally manages to fully recount what Pat said on that fateful, rainy night. As she turns the blue iris, it opens an entrance, where at first she's greeted by curtains. The directing and lighting here making them appear like tall trees, as if Susie was in a dense forest, the same way Pat was in the beginning. As Susie sneaks through a very familiar black and gold hallway, we get to learn what Madame Blanc really thinks of her.
We must get rid of that bitch of an American girl.
A bit harsh.
Finish. We must die. Die. Die.
Well, Susie, looks like you've gotten yourself into a bit of a predicament right now. Better be careful and try not to get caught, or else you'll be like your friend Sarah over here. As Pavlos looks for Susie using Sarah's lighter, we get some more of Argento's wicked directing and signature red lighting, which again helps to heighten the tension that this scene possesses. Before Pavlos could locate Susie, she manages to find a door that leads to a nicely decorated room containing one of Argento's movies and a woman who I think all of us will recognize. Yep, it's the woman with the whack-ass snoring. The directress, Helena Marcos, whom Susie accidentally wakes up.
Who is it? Who's there?
Marcos taunts Susie as she goes to kill her, but unfortunately, Marcos is, invisible. She scoffs at Susie's attempt and uses her powers to blow up a random statue and reanimate Sarah's corpse. Again, this is an Italian film. However, before zombie Sarah could get a chance at killing Susie, flashes of lightning reveal Marcos' outline, and she takes the opportunity to pierce the Black Queen's throat, revealing her horrifying, disfigured form, apparently played by a 90-year-old ex-hooker. Sarah disappears, and the headmistress lays dead next to her bed as the academy around her starts to crumble, fall apart, and explode, with the faculty all howling in pain As Susie makes her way out, we get one last taste of Argento's skill as a filmmaker. When she's finally outside, it's raining heavily, just like when she first encountered the academy. However, now, instead of instilling a sense of fear like it did in the beginning, it now signals a feeling of triumph, as Susie has managed to vanquish Mater Suspiriorum, the mother of sighs. Suspiria is a film that embodies the concept of style over substance. Now sure, I do think the movie does offer some interesting ideas, however, the story and characters in it are pretty simplistic all things considered. But of course, that's not what the film is going for, is it? It's not aiming to be a grounded or realistic film. In fact, one of the main aspects that makes Suspiria so superb is, in a way, its disregard for realism, opting instead for incredibly out there directing choices, colorful lighting that enhances and heightens the emotions of the scene, haunting music that can instill a strong sense of fear and magic, and of course, bright red blood that makes the violence more shocking rather than unsettling. Like a lot of other talented directors, Dario knows when and where to bend reality to create set pieces that elicits the intended reactions that he wants out of the audience. Argento was able to take a standard fantasy horror film about witches and imbue it with a ton of color, pun intended, creating for a unique and unforgettable experience. I myself have a very unique relationship to Suspiria, as it was the first horror film I'd ever seen. See, when I was young, I was super into horror films, which was funny because by then I hadn't even seen a single horror film. At the time, my main exposure to horror movies were through watching videos about them. Then eventually I came across this site called Tubi, which is like this streaming service that offers movies for free but with ads, which was great for me because I hadn't discovered what pirating was, so a platform like this was perfect for little old me. Anyways, I noticed while browsing their catalog that they had Suspiria, and I had already known about it because, I watched videos about it. So I thought, why not watch it? And I remember I really enjoyed it. It was basically like the first time I had watched a movie on my own, because every other film I'd watched then was like in theaters and cinemas. So it was a very unique first experience. Ever since then, I've broadened my film taste, but I still remain personally partial to horror cinema, and this film still occupies a very distinct spot in my cerebrum. This has been the Orange Guy. Have a nice day.